Welcome inside another edition of the Stingray Scoop, everybody. I am your host, Stingray, and I hope everybody is getting ready for the big 4th of July weekend. Now, we're doing two different things today. One, I am actually going to show you an interview that I conducted earlier this week, and then I'm going to update you guys on all of the news and notes around the world of sports. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I get you caught up on all of the news on this edition of the Stingray Scoop. It is finally Friday, my friends, and on the eve of a long weekend. As you know, we've got the 4th on Sunday, but it will be recognized on Monday. So I hope everybody is doing well and getting ready for a wonderful weekend. But guys, I want to start off with a very special interview that I did earlier this week. So what you're going to see here for about the next 20 to 25 minutes is an interview that I did with a very special individual who was nice enough to come on the Stingray Scoop, and he is a personal trainer, along with he has a podcast, and he is a former football player. So without further ado, here is our interview with special guest Ernest Allen. Today on the Stingray Scoop, we have a very special guest for you guys, as we are going to interview the legendary player in the AFL, Ernest Allen. Now, Ernest also has a podcast, and he played college football at the University of Cincinnati. But he did have a lot of sacks in the Arena Football League. So without further ado, here is our special guest on the Stingray Scoop today, Ernest Allen. Ernest, how are you doing today, sir?
Good. How are you? How you doing, Stingray?
I'm doing good, man. And listen, one of the things that I forgot to mention is that you are a personal trainer. Tell us a little bit about your personal training days.
Oh, okay. Well, a normal day, I wake up at like around 5 o'clock, and I'm in here in the gym in my office, and I start the whole process of loading my programs. And then my first session is usually like around 7 o'clock, and then we hit the ground running. And
Yes.
some days I'm in here from six, no, really from 6 o'clock up until like 8 o'clock at night. But
Awesome.
I love what I do, and I chose this whole path, so I enjoy the whole process of what what I'm involved in with my clients, and
Yeah.
and then on some days like today is like an admin day where I do all my back office stuff. If you can see my desk,
Yes.
it's like a hurricane hit it, and I'm juggling like 20 different hats right now.
Right.
So that's a basic day: training, doing admin work for the most part.
Well, what made you decide to get into the era of personal training?
Oh, one of the main factors was training kids. I got into this to help youth athletes and really young people in general not make the stupid mistakes that I made when I played ball. I did a lot of stupid stuff in the gym, like overtraining,
Yes.
lifting too heavy and making things more cumbersome than what it should be. And I really had to I had to take a step back and as I got older to learn how to train properly. And with those lessons that I learned late, I try to transfer that to to the youth athletes and some college athletes that I train on a daily basis, and some general population. So
Well, let's go back to your college football days, actually, a little bit before your college days.
yeah.
You are originally from South Bend, correct?
Yes, I went to high school in South Bend, Indiana. I'm
Yes.
from pretty much everywhere. I was born in Long Beach, California.
Okay.
I lived in Michigan for 8 years, and then we moved to South Bend when I was like in the fourth grade, and that's where I graduated high school. And I spent most of my childhood in South Bend.
Yes. Well, did Notre Dame ever try to recruit you?
They came and saw me play basketball in high school, and the guy, he was an offensive line coach. He was really intrigued until they saw my transcript. And
Okay.
when they saw my transcript, everything just dropped out. So I wasn't the best student, but I had a few. That was like around my junior year,
Yes.
and I was a big kid. I've always been a big person for the most part. I don't view myself as big. I was like in high school. I was like 270, 275 to 280, and I was like 6'3" in high school. So that's what attracted the University of Notre Dame. But they very rarely recruit any kids from Indiana. They maybe every few years they'll pick up a kid from Indiana, but mainly they recruit the 4 and 5 star athletes from around the nation. So,
Well, when you think back to your college days,
mhm.
which game stands out to you as the most exciting?
Oh, I have several. One is where my first college game. We played Penn State. It was my first ever college game. I was a freshman, a true freshman, and I was playing in Beaver Stadium. They had just joined the Big Ten, and I was playing in front of 85,000 people. I think Penn State was ranked number 2 in the nation, and I got thrown to the wolves, and we got beat pretty bad. If you want to look up that score, I'm not going to repeat the score. You can look up the score on the internet. It's pretty. It was a historic victory for Penn State, but that was probably the downside. Probably my most vivid and the coolest memory I had is when we played Wisconsin.
Yes.
It was my senior year. It was my last game. I was on the road, and I had a pretty decent game. Wisconsin was headed to the Rose Bowl, and the story behind that, defensive their defensive staff,
Hmm.
really their defensive line, sent all our offensive linemen roses. Because they were going to the Rose Bowl. They had just been selected to go to the Rose Bowl. This was back in 1994, and we went up there, and we showed up the first quarter and a half, and then their horses took over, and I
Right.
was playing against one of the he was a number one center in the nation. His name was Corey Raymer, and I prepared really well against him, and I knew this was going to be my last college game, and I had a pretty decent game. I think I had a half of a sack and like 3 tackles and like 1 for loss or something like that. And he actually came up to me after the game and said, "Man, I don't know where you came from, but you played one hell of a game, and I wish you the best of luck." This
Yes.
guy was a perennial All American. I think like a two-year All American. I mean, he was like one of the best offensive linemen in the nation. And for him to come up to me after the game and give me that compliment was the
Yes.
coolest thing. So those 2 games, my first game and my last game in college, were my two most memorable games.
Well, you talked about your playing days and playing at Penn State. You also went to Knoxville to
Yeah.
take on Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
Which one of those two stadiums, or maybe another one, was the loudest that you ever played in?
Oh wow. I'll tell you. I s- the that whole when we played Tennessee, we got the brakes beat off of us. I remember before and that's probably one of the loudest stadiums. I would say it was between that game and Penn State because Penn
Right.
State is in Happy Valley, and if you've ever been in that stadium, the crowd is right on top of you. And they just had expanded their stadium seating to like add like 40,000 or 30,000 new seats. And I had never heard anything that loud until we went to Tennessee. But what made Tennessee loud, if you've ever played and went to a Tennessee game, when they played, every time they scored, they played Rocky Top.
Yeah.
And I heard that song at least 20 times, I believe. I mean, it wasn't that much, but it
Yes.
was a loud, intense game, and it was probably it was the funnest games. And when I remember we were going out for warm ups, and we always be like the homecoming queen back then.
Yeah.
It was their homecoming, and I forget who it was. It was their skill players. They were coming. They were going off the field after they warm up, and then the visiting team comes on the field. When we were coming on the field, their skill players were coming off, and I heard two of their skill players say, "Man, let's hurry up and get this game over so we can go to Atlanta." So, and
That's awesome.
it was the first, and it was also the first game that, if you know Tennessee football, Johnny Majors, it was his first game back over, I think, with after like a long hiatus. And Johnny Majors, if you know Tennessee football, he's like a god in Tennessee. So
Yes.
when he came back, that like supercharged everything, and that made it extra loud, I think, because he was in the building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk real quick because you did play a little bit for the Seattle Seahawks, and I always like to ask our former players,
Yeah.
what is the biggest difference in jump from college to the NFL?
The biggest jump, as you know, is the speed
Yeah.
and the retention of what you have to do. You have to be able to retain the actual game plan, your alignment, your assignment, your technique, and those change. And it's not like college is a little bit different because you have other obligations like going to school, going to class. But when you go and you're playing for money and you have everything there, it's even more intense. The
Yes.
preparation is even more intense, and the amount of um amount of information you have to you
Right.
have to retain is even more intense. So the speed of the game and the amount of information that you had to retain was probably
Yes.
the biggest thing.
Well, we don't get a lot of arena football
Yeah.
players on. Talk about the difference between the college, NFL, and arena.
Well, my journey into arena was basically I was just trying to stay. My first 2 years, I was trying to stay in shape, and I was
Yes.
trying to get back to the outdoor game in any fashion because I was in the World League for a little bit too, and it was still kind of viable back then before it folded. So the difference is it's a smaller field. Um, my first 8 years, you had to go both ways if you were a lineman,
Yes.
and it was typical for them to bring defensive linemen in rather than offensive linemen because you can teach a defensive lineman how to block, but you can't teach an offensive lineman how to pass rush and play the run. So
Yes.
you had to play both ways. The game evolved from when I started playing in '96 up until 2008. The game had evolved, and by the end of my career, it was it was a pretty popular game, especially in certain markets, and especially here in the South. And that's pretty much why I moved here to Orlando.
Yes.
Um, the the difference, just the speed of the game, and you have to retain a little bit more knowledge, and with arena, it's not a lot of knowledge that you got to retain. It's pretty much man on one-on-one football,
Yes.
But it was still intense. I had fun playing, and I met a lot of cool people, and had a very good experience. And the different, it's not really different than the outdoor game. It's just
Mhm.
faster and a lot more. It's a lot more crowded. It's like playing. It's like playing football in a phone booth.
Yes.
But it was fun. So yeah.
Well, my last football question for you before we move to other things is this.
Okay.
You talked about, when I was on your podcast,
Hmm.
about you live in Orlando, and Orlando is the home of a rival of yours, the Central Florida Knights.
Yes.
Talk about that rivalry that has heated up between Cincinnati and Central Florida, please.
Oh yes, that rivalry over the last 3 years has heated up big time. I had the opportunity to have one of my players that I coached in high school. He played at Cincinnati, and
Yes.
he came here in 2000, I believe 2018, and they played Central Florida when they were like number 2 in the nation, and number 3. They're in top 5 or something like that. And the first half, Cincinnati hung in with them, and this was really the start of the rivalry because this game was like the game of this was like the ESPN game of the week. So you had Saturday, you had the whole get up, the whole outdoor party, ESPN. The stage was up. It was a big huge game, and they beat Cincinnati pretty bad in the second half, and it's been kind of going back and forth. But the last 2 years, Cincinnati they went up to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati won.
Yeah.
So there's been a little bit of trash talk going between the two. And just in my opinion, both schools really want to go to a bigger conference.
Yeah.
And they're the bullies on the block right now. And
Right.
they're the two main schools that sell the AAC, that American Athletic Conference. And they're just the two big bullies. They do a great job recruiting. Cincinnati has a great head coach now, and he has a solid system in place, and a solid recruiting a
Yes.
solid recruiting model, and he's just taking the reins and just went with it. Central Florida is now a little bit on the swing, where they're in the last 3 years they've been rebuilding constantly,
Yeah.
but they still have a great group of athletes. It's a great school. I live here in Orlando, so I've seen it
Yes.
grow. And the rivalry is going to get even more intense over the next several years,
Yes.
especially if the college playoff ends up expanding to 12 teams,
Oh,
like
yeah.
I've been hearing. If that happens, and Cincinnati and Central Florida end up in the playoff against each other, it will shut everything down between the two states. It
Right.
will be a huge, huge, huge ticket.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned earlier, or I mentioned earlier, that you actually have a podcast.
Yes.
What made you decide to ultimately start your podcast? And can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
I appreciate you asking me. Yes, I have the Game Ready podcast. I started the podcast really to just air out and communicate with people about sports, just various subjects. Right now, I'm just enjoying the whole process of building it and really seeing it actually grow. It's not the easiest thing because I really don't like the sound of my voice. I mean, I deal with it when I'm editing. I'm trying to make it sound okay. But I started the podcast just to
Right.
really market my business. I have a personal a training facility here in Orlando, and it was another avenue outside of social media that would allow me to get the message out about my training philosophy, my philosophy on self improvement,
Yes.
uh, and in just life in general.
Well, how long have you had this podcast going?
I started it on Christmas Eve of last year.
Okay.
And I had been wanting to start a podcast over the last several years, bought the equipment, but I never got pulled the trigger. And on my slow days during the holidays, I was like, well, let me pull the trigger and just record something. So I
Yes.
recorded it, and my voice didn't sound bad that day, and so I decided to publish it,
Yes.
and the rest is history. I haven't been really the most consistent over the last several months.
Right.
Just dealing with a few things. I lost my mom back in February, and that kind of slowed some things down. If you've ever lost a parent, I never really knew that it would affect me like it did, but it had a pretty substantial effect on
Oh
me,
yeah.
and it kind of had me take a step back and really evaluate my health and how I viewed my well-being. And I had to really take like a month and a half to 2 months to really focus on my health,
Yes.
so I can help my clients. And that's why I kind of was really inconsistent with my podcast, but now I'm getting back into it, and with the help of with you guys at CTS, and Joey, who's really just a solid guy, man. When he contacted me, and I read his bio, and I looked at his material, and all you guys' material. I had an opportunity to interview Marvin, Marvin Constant, who was
Yes.
just the best dude you will ever meet in your life. I mean, he's really just a really, really just a honest guy, man. And I his podcast with me was just excellent. And then I got an opportunity to work with you and interview you, and I'm going to be publishing that one tomorrow
Okay.
after I get done editing it.
Yes.
And it's been a cool journey. It's just been another way for me to just expand my my reach, and really get the message out about how important it is just to be physically well.
Well, who are some other guests ultimately that you would like to get on your podcast? Like any professional weightlifters, or are you sticking mostly to sports?
I'm pretty much sticking mostly to sports right now, because that's where I'm comfortable at.
Okay.
I'm going to probably. I had an idea of approaching some of my old teammates who've had NFL careers.
Yes.
Some of them have they have like 9, 10 years in the NFL, and they have some great stories. And I want to get them on, because I have a rapport with them already,
Yes.
and see where it goes, and get and really get really. I had an idea of what I want to do. You know how every team has support staff, people
Mhm.
who just come in, and they're specialty players. Nobody pays attention to those players who've been on NFL rosters for like 8, 9 years, and they're journeymen. They're
Mhm.
journeymen, or they're just people who just work hard, and the reporters walk right past them.
Yeah.
I would love to interview those guys. I would love to interview those guys who nobody knows about, who's sat next to Brett Favre in the
Mhm.
locker room for 5 years, who sat next to some of these superstars, these mega stars that are out now. I would like to interview those guys, get those guys' stories, and understand where they come from, and where they feel they fit in the whole pieces
Mhm.
of the game. So
Yes.
that's who I would like to interview. I would like to interview those guys. You know.
Well, I do have one more football question for you. I said the last one,
That's
but
cool, man.
I
I love
actually
it.
got one more. Looking towards the fall season, how do you feel like Cincinnati will do in 2021?
Oh, if I go off of recent history, I think we're gonna hit the ground running.
Okay.
But everybody who's went to Cincinnati, who's lived in Cincinnati, who's been around Cincinnati, you still have that little area in the back of your mind, like you hope they don't get the deer in the headlights look.
Yep.
But the way he has things structured, the way that the head coach at Cincinnati has things organized, I don't see that happening. I think they're going to have a really good season, I think they're going to be in the hunt at the end of the year, and they have a great system in place, and they have a quarterback that's really he's seasoned. He's a senior. He's a really great quarterback, and his stats are pretty good, but he's a great leader, and they have a defense that's young, but you know they have some great DBs. They have some of the best DBs in the country, just my opinion. And they will compete. But the big game, as always, will be when they come here and they play UCF.
Yes.
And that game, more than likely, both teams more than likely will be ranked.
Yes.
At least I'm hoping, and I'm going to that game. I'm gonna head to that game in a heartbeat.
I got you. Well, Ernest, I'm going to pull you up full screen, and I would like you to do two things for me, please.
Okay.
One of them is to tell people how they can find your podcast, and the other one is if we have anybody that lives in Orlando and would like to schedule a session with you, tell them how they can do that.
That is excellent. Well, you can find my podcast, the Game Ready Podcast, on all platforms, I believe. I'm really on 6 platforms majorly. I'm on Apple Podcasts. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Google. You can find my podcast. Just type in Game Ready and it'll pop up. And in Orlando, you can contact me at my phone number is 321-303-9208. My website is www.atlasprotraining.com, and you can schedule a consultation or if you have any questions about health and performance, I'm an open book, and I'll give the best answers I can. If I can't find them, I'll search, or I'll ask somebody, or I'll refer you to someone who can answer the questions. So, and my main focus is movement first. We load second, and mobility and flexibility, and then we go from there.
Yes. Well, man, we always like to help out, our viewers or not our viewers, but our guests on the show. You were nice enough to come on, and so we'd like to also help you out as well.
I thank you. You guys have been the best. It's been a great experience. So I appreciate it.
Well, man, hopefully we can do it again soon and talk more Cincinnati when the season begins.
Oh, it's a done deal.
Oh, okay, awesome. Well, man, do you have anything else you would like to add?
Oh no, other than the just to thank you.
Yes.
And I appreciate that you guys being graceful enough to invite me on the show, and I'm always open to talk football. I can talk football all day, every day, whatever era you want to talk about. I love talking the game. So that's it. That's pretty much it.
Okay. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we consider you now a part of the CTS family, so we will do it again soon, my friend.
I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, man.
All right.
And that's going to wrap up the interview there with Ernest Allen. We really appreciate him joining us here, and we hope that you guys have enjoyed it. And we are back here live on the Stingray Scoop, and that interview was recorded on Tuesday afternoon. That is the reason that the background is different, and of course I was in a different thing. The reason that I wanted to change it up now is because we actually had a little bit of history being made this past week, and we will start in Omaha, as we had a winner in the College World Series. And guys, let me just go on ahead and tell you, the Mississippi State Bulldogs, after 126 years of being in a drought, of not having a championship, a national championship in anything, the Diamond Dogs finally got it done. as they beat Vanderbilt 2-1, and they are the 2021 national champions. So congratulations to the Mississippi State Bulldogs and the Omaha Dogs as they beat Vanderbilt Wednesday night by a final score of 9-0. Now, Mississippi State lost game one, and it looked really, really bad, like they were going to lose and choke again in Omaha. But after the first game, Mississippi State beat Vandy 22-2 in the 2 games after the loss to pick up their first national championship in any sport. So congratulations to the Mississippi State Bulldogs. They desperately deserved it. And now things are going to get really interesting in Starkville because they are your national champions right now in the world of college baseball. So congratulations to them. And, it was heartbreaking that NC State, because of the virus protocols, could not continue on in the tournament up there, but I guess that's the day that we live in now. You've got to, play by the rules and go with what the NCAA says, whether you agree with it or not. That's not my decision to make. Everybody else has an opinion on it, and I'm just reporting what I heard and I saw, but it was unfortunate that the NC State Wolfpack could not continue on in that game and that tournament up there in the College World Series. Now, a little bit further close to home, we also had the NCAA make a ruling yesterday that basically the players can make money off of their likeness. And here close to home in the state of Alabama, quarterback Bo Nix of the Auburn Tigers was one of the first players to announce a partnership with a sweet tea company, and he is now endorsed by the Milo's Sweet Tea Company here in Alabama. So congratulations to Bo Nix of being one of the first players to be endorsed by the new rule from the NCAA saying that you can and you will be allowed to make money off of your endorsements down there at any college or university. So congratulations to all of the players and especially Bo Nix on that partnership with Milo's Sweet Tea. And unfortunately, we have some sad news to report. The former Georgia Bulldog and Miami Hurricane coach Mark Richt announced yesterday on his Twitter and his Instagram account that he does have Parkinson's disease. Everybody was wondering why. Coach was waddling around here lately, and he decided to announce it to everybody at one central time that he does now have Parkinson's disease. So, Coach, our thoughts and prayers are with you with the announcement that you do, unfortunately, have Parkinson's disease. Guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Scoop and basically the news part. Now, I have another big announcement for you guys over on my network, the Stingray Show. On Tuesday and next Friday, we have a 2-part series with a huge guest. So I would like to play for you right now a clip of who we are going to have on the Stingray Show next Tuesday, and you may recognize him as the recruiting analyst over at ESPN, the one and only Tom Luganville. So, Tom, it's been a while since we've seen you, man. What have you been up to?
Oh man, I'll tell you what, it has been, as everybody knows, it's been a long, 14, 15 months now.
Yes.
Everybody's been cooped up. We made it through a college football season. Wasn't ideal, but it happened. We got through it. We were able to name a national champion. We now have an off season where it looks like we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And for me, it's been great just because for the first time in a long time, we've been able to get back on the road. You know, for most of us analysts, we were broadcasting games from a studio, a very small room, off of monitors on a wall, and not being able to be inside the venues with the crowd noise and the excitement and all of the energy and the atmosphere that we all enjoy so much about college football. And so this spring, just from really from a recruiting perspective, which most of my spring is spent in player evaluation at the high school level, not just with the current class coming up, which would be the 2022 class, and then the 2023 class, and even the 2024s that are starting to come up. We finally got to get back on the road a little bit and start to see kids in person, host as well as attend camps and combines and gather intel stuff, height, weight, hand size, arm length, all of the verified measurables and data that you want to have, 40-yard dash, short shuttle, 3-cone L drill, individual drills and reps, something that virtually disappeared during the last recruiting cycle. And so to be able to get eyes on kids again, be able to start to take their tape and say, okay, does what we're seeing in person start, does it equate with what we're seeing on film? To have that cycle kind of get back into motion has been fantastic. And now, we just concluded that this past weekend in Charlotte with our Under Armour All-America Camp Series. The dead period in recruiting now is going to, open up starting June 1st, which is, holy smokes, going to be the Wild Wild West. It's going to be the OK Corral. I mean, there's no telling how crazy this is going to be for these kids. Now that the camp and combine circuit's done, they can now move into official visits, getting on campus. Coaches can start interacting face-to-face with kids, coaching them in their individual camps. I mean, think about this, guys. You have college coaches across America that with the 2021 class signed kids that they've never shaken the hand of or actually seen in person.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how big a deal this thing became, and what that becomes in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. But to be able to have that interaction now is going to be really healthy for both parties.
So, if you would like to see the interview that we have with the Tom Luginbill, and that will be Tuesday and next Friday, as he was nice enough to give us 2 hours of content. So we're breaking it up into 2 shows, Tuesday and Friday. You can find us on Facebook, The Stingray Show. Just look for the cartoon there, and that's the profile picture. You can find it, like I said, on Facebook, The Stingray Show. You can also find it on my personal account, Stephen Stingray Ray. I actually do have the profile picture that you see there is me in sunglasses and an American flag shirt. And the last place that you can find it is over on Twitter at Stephen Ray 30. So those are the places that you can see my show, The Stingray Show, which is separate from the CTS and the Stingray Scoop. But guys, I do want to bring your attention to one small thing. Well, actually, it's not very small. It is a large thing. So let me real quick, because you know how I am, guys. Give me just a second. Computer's not wanting to work right. Okay. Think I've got it. Okay. All right. I apologize. You gotta love computers. Okay. This is going to surprise you, but we actually have our first hurricane of the 2021 season. It is sitting currently right now in the Caribbean. It just moved through Barbados and the U.S. Virgin Islands. It is currently a Category 1 hurricane with winds of 85 miles per hour with wind gusts as high as 90 to 100. Now, this thing is booking it. It is moving towards the west-northwest at 28 miles per hour. Now, if Ernest is still watching from this interview, there is the current path of Hurricane Elisa. And as you can see, by Tuesday at 7 a.m., it is supposed to be sitting off of the coast of Florida near Cape Canaveral and then move up to a point near Orlando and then ultimately towards the Jacksonville, Florida area. It is also supposed to cut across Cuba and possibly the northern islands of Jamaica. So this is a very serious situation, and especially if you have travel plans, either going to Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, or Cuba, or also if you were in Florida or any point along the Gulf Coast here, from basically, I would say, Houston all the way back around to Key West. I would keep my eyes on the weather because the models have been shifting further back off to the west and further back off to the east. So there's still a lot of different scenarios that this storm could go over the next 48 to 72 hours. But nonetheless, during the short term, if you know of anybody that are in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, or Jamaica, also over towards the Cuba area, need to phone them, need to call them, and let them know that a hurricane is moving through the Caribbean Sea right now. The good news is this is the only tropical system we have on the board right now, but as it is moving towards the state of Florida into next week, this is something we have got to keep our eyes on, and especially if you are in the southeastern United States of America. So I just wanted to also throw that at you because that could be a problematic event as we get into the Tuesday and Wednesday time frame next week. And as you can see, this thing is massive. And it has moved through Barbados and St. Lucius. And now it is churning over the warm waters of the Caribbean. And it is going to be interesting to see how well this storm actually intensifies, because honestly, it was not even supposed to reach hurricane strength, and it did reach hurricane strength. So it's actually done something that it was not supposed to do. So whenever you have weather systems, always expect the unexpected. And winds were gusting as high as 80 and 90 miles per hour earlier this morning down in Barbados in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So once again, if you have anybody that is in Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, or in Florida, you need to call them, text them, send them an email, and let them know, hey, there is a hurricane really close to your location. Keep an eye on it. So, as always, I will be continuing to update you guys, and hopefully, by the time we get into the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday time frame, we will have a better understanding of where Hurricane Elisa is going to be. So, guys, I just wanted to show you that that is something that we desperately need to keep our eyes on for the southeastern United States of America. But overall, the weekend forecast and for the forecast for the 4th of July looks wonderful if you are in the state of Alabama. There is a front that is moving through right now that's bringing a lot of showers and thunderstorms to a good portion of northern and central Alabama. And as it passes through the area, for the Saturday, Sunday, and Monday time frames, it is going to be warm outside, but the humidity levels are going to be picture perfect, and it is going to feel rather pleasant outside for your 4th of July weekend. So, guys, I hope that you have a wonderful 4th of July. I will be right back here, hopefully, next Friday for another Stingray scoop, but I said hopefully because next Thursday I actually do have to have a little bit of surgery. I have to have implants put in, dental implants. So next week's show will all be determined on my pain and swelling for next Friday. But guys, regardless, I hope that you have a great rest of your Friday afternoon, weekend, wonderful 4th of July, and as always, from all of us here at the CTS, God bless.